Hey, good morning and welcome to another sermon on the good life. This is week 3 of our Good Life series, a message of hope for the weary. And throughout this series, we're looking at the Beatitudes, a series of statements that Jesus makes about the good life. What does it look like? Who truly possesses the good life? And as we've seen over the past couple of weeks, and as we'll continue to see moving forward, Jesus flips conventional wisdom upside down. He says, you've heard this about the good life. You've heard that this group is in possession of the good life, but I'm here to offer you a different story. I'm here to paint a different picture of what the good life looks like. Now today, we're at week 3 of this series, which means we're going to be looking at the third beatitude, which is found in Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. And Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." Now, in order to understand exactly what Jesus is talking about in this beatitude, there's 3 words that we need to look at this morning. We need to look at the words meek, inherit, and earth. First, let's begin with earth. When Jesus says, the meek shall inherit the earth, what is he talking about? What does he mean by earth? Now, earth, it comes from the Greek word gi, and it means physical land. It means soil. So this promise that Jesus offers, it's a promise that you can touch. It's a promise that's tangible. I went into my backyard and I dug up some soil. When Jesus says the meek, they'll inherit the earth, here's what Jesus is talking about. Something that you can touch with your hands, with your fingers. And I know for many of you, you're like, really? That's what Jesus is promising me? It doesn't give me any incentive to portray meekness. Really, a whole bunch of soil in a solo cup? Why would Jesus be making this promise? Well, for his Jewish audience in the crowd, land was like at the center of their story. It was at the center of their tradition. If you know much about the Jewish story, all the way back in the beginning, God makes this promise to a man named Abram. His name is later changed to Abraham. And what is it that God promises to him? I'll give you one guess. Land, earth. Let's turn there. Genesis 12, verse 1. The Lord had said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." Leave it all behind. Everything that you've ever known, I want you to get away from it all. And I want you to journey to the land that I will bring you to, the land that I will gift to you. So Abram leaves, and he comes upon a particular plot of land. And here's the promise that God continues making to Abram. It's in verse 7. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." Land in the ancient world, it signified identity. What God is saying is, I'm going to give you a place to call home. I'm going to give you an identity. As you trust me, as you follow where I'm leading you, I will gift you with a place where you can settle down, where you can have a family, and their family and generations after can continue to live and dwell in a particular plot of land. So this promise of earth or of land, it goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so for the Jewish audience in attendance of the Sermon on the Mount, of hearing the Beatitudes, all these questions about land would have been rising to the surface. Because in the world at this time, while the Jewish people might have been living in the land that God had promised to Abraham, they weren't the owners of that land. That title went to the Roman Empire, who came in and conquered the Jewish homeland, who marched in and took possession of this land that the Jewish people believed was rightfully theirs. And so when Jesus promises the earth or the land for the meek, they started asking, well, does this mean that God has remembered his promise? Is God going to be faithful to the promise that he made to our ancestors a long time ago? Does this mean that God has not abandoned us? Does it mean that we haven't lost God's favor? I mean, if you know anything about the Old Testament, land is right at the heart of the entire story. It's the story of the Israelites acquiring the land, living in the land, losing the land, being forcibly removed or exiled from the land, then repossessing the land, and then being in the land but not the actual true owners of the land. And so what they were looking forward to was a time in the future when they themselves would be the owners of this land that God had been promising them. So see, when we talk about land, I mean, there's so much of a backstory here. And when Jesus makes this promise about land, he's not making a spiritual promise. And that's one of the problems that can happen with the Beatitudes. We turn them into these spiritual promises for another world, another realm, or another time and place. But instead, Jesus grounds this promise in this realm. Remember, it's about earth, soil that you can touch, land that you can stand on. This is a tangible promise for this realm, for this time and space that all of us inhabit together. Now, what happens when Jesus offers this beatitude, he's taking this promise that God had made a long time ago, and he's saying God remains faithful to this promise, but he's actually beginning to expand that promise a little bit more. Because no longer is this promise for one particular tribe, but rather this is a promise for a particular type of person, for a person who's living in the world in a particular way, the way of meekness. Now, meekness, this word, this Greek word, praus, it doesn't necessarily convey the same idea of meekness that we have in the world today. Rather, meekness that Jesus talks about, we might describe it as a gentle strength. So it's not powerlessness, it's not true weakness, but rather it's strength, but it's gentle strength. Another definition that I came across, which I absolutely love, power under constraint. I love that. Power under constraint. Blessed are the meek, those who have power, but who use it in a responsible way, who trust God with their power, is another way that this word has been described. Now, a couple of years ago, I attended a boxing match. And the evening was a series of different matches between different opponents. And as the night went on, there were two opponents who entered the ring. And clearly, right from the start, you could tell that the two of them were in two totally different classes. You had the first boxer who walked into the ring, and he was this short, compact fellow. He looked strong, but you could just tell he was very, very small compared to this second boxer who walked into the ring. I mean, this dude, massive. And his arm reach, I mean, seriously, the guy had wings. It was crazy. And you could tell as soon as that bell went off, it was like the massive boxer was just toying with the smaller guy. And I remember the guy that I went with, we were just talking during the match like, man, if that bigger guy were to unleash his entire strength on the other one, I mean, he would just knock him to the floor. But instead, he would just kind of give some of these jabs where he would lightly tap the other guy's chin or his chest, somewhere in his torso, but he would never fully give this guy a blow that would have knocked him onto the floor. He was there dancing around the ring with him, absorbing some of the blows, and then doing everything that he had to do simply to win the match. I mean, to me, it's power under constraint. You could tell this massive boxer, he had some serious strength, or he could have had some serious strength behind his punches. But instead, he decided, I don't really want to hurt this guy. This is supposed to be a fun match. Now, this was a charity boxing match, so he was not going to unleash everything that he had and give this guy a concussion. Power under constraint. I mean, think about how different that way of being is than some of the other ways and things that we value in the world today. I mean, think about some of these phrases. Only the strong survive. Or what about every man or every woman for themselves? Yeah, or think about victory through force, through power, through violence. I mean, unfortunately, these are some of the values that we in our world hold today. And we look at these and say, well, this is the way in which the world works. This is, if we want the good life, this is how we have to get there. We need to unleash all of our strength, no matter who gets squashed or knocked on the floor, as we seek that which we desire. See, Jesus offers a different way of being in the world. He's offering a different way to the good life. Rather than using everything in our power for our own self-interest, he's saying, the true good life, the life that endures, the life that doesn't collapse in on itself, it's actually a life of using that which you possess, the power and strength that you possess, in a way that's responsible, in a way that is just, a way that is good for all people. We all have different levels of power. We all have different things that we possess. And at the heart of this beatitude, Jesus is saying, or he's asking the question, how will we use that which we hold in our possession? I mean, think about this word inherit. Inherit. Jesus talks about the meek inheriting the earth. Now, connected with inherit is an inheritance. An inheritance is someone has died and they are passing on that which they own to a family or another loved one. There might be some money, maybe there's some land, it's a house, it's jewelry, maybe it's a Ferrari that's been sitting in the garage. Whatever possessions this person had, they have decided that they're going to pass them on to a certain person. So before they die, they'll write a will. And the will details, okay, this is where I'm going to pass all my stuff, or this is how I'm going to pass on all my stuff. When Jesus says that the meek will inherit the earth, Jesus is making a profound statement about ownership, particularly land ownership. And what Jesus is saying is that the land that we own, that we possess, that we live on, well, it's actually all owned by God. I mean, this is a very Jewish idea. In one of the Psalms, it says, the earth is the Lord's and all in it. Jesus is picking up on this tradition, and he's offering all of us a different way to view the things that we possess. What if we lived with this belief that everything we owned was God's, and that we were simply stewards of that which we ourselves have received? I mean, think about land, the thing that Jesus talks about in this promise. In the world at this time, and in the world today, who owns most of the land? The wealthy, those with money, those with power, those who are seen as being on the top. Here's what happens. The more land that you own, the more isolated you can become. Have you ever driven through a neighborhood, or maybe you live in a neighborhood, and the only time you ever get a glimpse of your neighbor is when they're driving their car on the street in front of your house, and you see that car go into the garage, and then the door comes down, and that's the last glimpse that you get of your neighbor. Land can isolate us. On the land that we own individually and collectively, we establish boundaries, we build fences, we put up walls, all for the purpose of keeping ourselves safe, keeping ourselves in, allowing only those in that we want to be within our space, and then also keeping others out. Saying, well, you don't deserve to be here. This is my land and you can't be here. I mean, can you see how land ownership can isolate us and also make us indifferent to the plight of others around the world? I mean, think about how many wars have been fought over this: soil, earth, land. How much blood has been shed as people have pursued the ownership of land. I mean, think about our country. Think about our dark history, the massacre, genocide of an entire group of people, all because of the belief that the land that we were seeking was our God-given right. I mean, think about all the harm, all the lives that were lost because a group of people used their power in a way that caused harm to others. I mean, think about the ways in which we've harmed the earth, the ways in which we've exploited this land, this gift that we've been given to enjoy. All the ways that we've harmed the land because, well, it's our land, so of course we can use it however we please. Of course we can mine it for its resources, and who cares how much damage we do to the earth. Seeking after land ownership, it can make us indifferent to the land itself as well as to those who might not have as much power or strength as we ourselves have. So Jesus, when he offers this beatitude, he's giving us a different perspective, a different lens through which to see our entire lives. What if we lived life with the belief that the land that we own, the land we possess, or take it one step further, all the possessions that we have, what if we were to see them as gifts bestowed upon us by God? And we were stewards. We were simply allowed to hold these things in our possession for a certain period of time. I mean, wouldn't we hold things a little looser? Wouldn't we not grip and hold on and hoard things as much as we typically do? I mean, wouldn't we want to use all the things that we've been blessed with in order to bless others? I mean, this goes back to the promise to Abram. I'm going to give you this land so that you may bless others. If we really saw it all as a gift, and this is something that we talk about all the time at Awaken, if we truly saw it as a gift, wouldn't we desire to use that which we've been gifted, that which we've received, in a way that is responsible and just and good for the entire planet, people, as well as the earth, the physical, tangible earth that we can all touch, that we can stand on? See, I believe this is the good life that Jesus is leading us into, because this connects us with the people that we've been created to be. It connects us with the divine. It connects us with each other. We see this giant interconnectedness between all of us. And what if we were all to say, I'm going to exhibit meekness, power under constraint, so that we can all flourish, so we can all heal, so this earth can heal, so that there is an earth left for us and our children to inherit. So this week, may you see all that you own as a gift. May you see it as a gift that's been given to you by God. And as you see all of it as a gift, may you hold it a little looser. May you look for ways to use your gifts and your power and your strength to bless others, to lead all of us forward into a world that is just. May you be responsible with that which you own. May you exhibit power under constraint. And as you do, may you discover the good life, a life of true fulfillment and satisfaction, a life that isn't spent seeking more and hoarding and leveling others onto the ground, but a good life that is found in blessing all those that you come across each week. Grace and peace to you this week, my friends.